Today's episode is brought to you by AOS Kitchens, the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists. Welcome to another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast. Today we have a barbecue champion, Netflix royalty, Tina Cannon, all the way from America, coming to talk to us about her barbecue journey, the show, American Barbecue Showdown, and generally what she does for charity and how she cooks. Truly a fantastic episode. So without much further ado, here's Tina.
Hello, Tina. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today on the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast. So for anyone who is listening, tell everyone who you are.
Tell everybody who I am. Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm a barbecue champion. I'm a chef for a charity. I'm a dog mom and a darn cook, good cook.
Cool. I think you're playing that down a little bit as well. You're more than a darn good cook. People would have seen you on TV, on Netflix as well, on the Food Network. So more than a darn good cook, I think is what you should be saying, really.
Or lucky, maybe lucky.
But what kind of started your passion of cooking then? How did that story begin for you?
For just cooking in general, my mom, my dad, my grandfather, all my aunts were all loved to cook. And, my dad owned an insurance company, and that's such a negative thing. I thought, what was a good thing to do that makes everybody happy? Food, right? So I was always, I grew up in the kitchen with all my family, not necessarily barbecue because my dad burnt everything on a gas grill, but that's probably why I like char. But just being around it and like the joy of the whole family being together and just cooking together for holidays or we used to, when I was young, even go spend the night at my aunt's house or my other aunt's house, and they didn't even live that far away, but we'd just cook and have fun. So it was just always a positive experience. So I guess that's probably why.
And where did that love for food migrate into your love for barbecue
Oh, that was a freak thing. It really was. Now, of course, I grew up my dad didn't cook barbecue per se, like long, slow cooks. My grandfather did, but that was always like a treat. Me and my dad used to fish and do stuff together because I was kind of a tomboy. And so we'd go out for barbecue at these like real hole in the wall places. So, I loved it. I don't think I've ever told anybody that, but I never really thought about it until people said, why did you do barbecue? Because my story of when I started competing is totally different. It's not even childhood related. I guess it was 2009 or something like that. I was watching an American TV show called Pit Masters.
Yeah.
And, I always loved that show. So, Myron Mix and a lot of I don't know if y'all follow those particular stars over there, but
certainly do.
I was just, you do? Okay. I was just mesmerized by that. And so I didn't buy it. Actually, I used points on a hotel credit card, and we got a smoker. It's it's called a Brinkman. They're very inexpensive. You can go to the big box store. Back then they were like $50. So I used to just cook on it because I liked it. You could grill on it or you could smoke meat on it. And we had a bad storm come through and tear a lot of roofs and damage houses, tornadoes, hurricane, really bad. And so I cooked for the crew that was there trying to replace my roof in a couple days versus because there was another storm rolling through and it was leaking. It was terrible. So I cooked for them because I was just appreciated. That's the way I know how to appreciate somebody is through food because I don't have many other talents, So the superintendent of the company, and I'm sure where y'all live, that's something else, but the boss that checks up on everybody showed up. And of course, in the South, we're notorious for just inviting everybody over, So I tell him, hey, just stop and eat with us. You know, you don't got, he came to get his money actually, but so he ate with us. And there was 12 people on the work crew, plus him, my husband, I, and my dog. And he loved it. And he says, this is really good barbecue. He kept talking to my husband, which kind of eat me a little bit. But anyway, that still happens now. And he said that a few times as he was getting his plate filled back up. And then he went to his truck and he brought back an application. And it was for a barbecue contest. And I had never thought about, I've watched it on TV and I thought, well, why not? And then I kind of was snarked at him a little bit because, he was talking to my husband, which is from New Jersey, which is like the New York area. I know y'all in a different country, but most people know when and they don't do low and slow barbecue up there. They're more grilling people, overall. I hope I don't get any bad comments about that, but
I'm sure you'll be fine.
They don't do like low and slow whole hogs, pork butts, brisket, quite as often as we do down here. Might be weather related, whatever. So I went to the contest and I wanted kind of to prove a point. I'm like, he's saying I wanted him to see that I was cooking, not my husband, So we went and we won. Right out the bat. And I had no idea. We had no idea at KCBS contest, which I know y'all have over there too, that you had to cook 4 meats at one time and then turn it in every 30. I had no idea. I just showed up and I'm like, holy cow. How am I going to do this? So my husband left while I stayed there getting stuff, prepared, and went and bought another smoker, just did a big box store like Walmart or whatever that was a few miles away, and brought it back and we just lit it and I cooked on it. It was just the craziest thing. And then I won. So then you get the bug, and you win this little trophy, $200, you're like, woohoo, but so I just started competing kind of for fun. And for a few years I got ignored, they would come talk to my husband. I'm there doing stuff and they're talking to him. If y'all ever compete in a barbecue contest, you don't have a lot of time on the turn-in day to talk, you're pretty much busy, So he had all the time in the world to talk, but we're still a team. He has the things that he does and then I have the things that I do. But so it just kept going and now here I am talking to y'all.
Do you still do you still compete quite regularly?
I didn't as much because during COVID, most of them were canceled. I did a couple last year. I used to do quite a bit more, about 15 or so.
Wow.
And, work full time and other stuff. And then just this past year, I've had like so much going on. I left and filmed another show. And as I was telling y'all before we got on, contract tariff. This is an announcement that nobody knows yet, but I'm going to be doing another show. I don't know about access in your country for it. I guess probably YouTube. It's a really different concept. I'll be playing a whole different role in that show.
Wow.
Exciting.
So they'll probably load it on YouTube or I'll try to put some links, but I'll be a mentor.
Oh, wow.
Rather than a competitive cook. So we're taking somebody that just cooks at home that's never competed and we mentor them. And then each one of them go head to head. So I hope I can teach somebody that what I know. So I honestly haven't even shared this because I just got this contract late last night.
Cool. We do love an exclusive. We do love an exclusive.
So it's kind of, I had, look at it. I'll show you. Wait, let me show you the last page. I hadn't even signed it yet. So I'm going to, I was just reviewing it and, now you have to get, luckily I have a friend that's an attorney, wanted to review it, but I'm going to sign it and send it off. I should let y'all see me sign it.
How did it feel kind of making that step onto like television shows?
You know, when you go to a barbecue contest, people are standing around and watching you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess because I always cook with my family in the kitchen, it doesn't bother me. I know that sounds weird, but it really doesn't, because I get focused on what I'm doing and I don't think about it. Maybe that's why I did a little better than some other people, because they wasn't accustomed to that,
Yeah.
I did a show in 2014 on Travel Discovery Network. It's called American Grilled. I don't know if y'all have access to that. It's on Amazon Prime. Should I tell you how I did?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go for it.
Of course you did.
So that was in 2014. And then for like 3 years, I did a show called BBQ, which was in the Alabama Barbecue Association, which is I know y'all are in a different country, but it's a southern state right next to where I live and where I was originally born. So they followed me around. I think I did that for 3 years and did that show. So I had like 5 people in my barbecue trailer, my competition trailer, all the time. So I got used to people being in my way and all that. So I did that for 3 years. And then I won at World Food Championships here. And this is why I quit the show, and nobody knows this, but I'm out of contract now, so I can say it. They really kind of overlooked that win for me. And the pit crew is what my team is. We won more than one category, and they kind of just didn't cover it on the show. And I thought, well, why would they not do that? So at that time, I thought, okay, I'm done. I fulfilled what I needed to do with them, because that was at the end of the year, because that was in November. So I moved on from that show, and it was the weirdest thing. I got a message from somebody saying they're from Netflix. Okay. I'm not a technical person. Okay. So I thought, oh, somebody's like spamming me, or whatever. So they kept on, and the wording sounded like someone that wasn't from a country that didn't speak English. Like when you get all that spam stuff and they call you madam and all that kind of, anyway. So I wrote them back and I said, y'all just need to call me. As you know, from this interview, I don't even own a computer, y'all. I own this phone, and that is it. So they called me, and of course I didn't recognize the number. So I said, y'all going to have to call me with a phone that says it's Netflix. And I had to ask my family, my mom and my sister, what Netflix was, because I don't have it.
Oh, right.
I'm glad I didn't. They said, oh, it's a cable channel. I'm like, oh, okay. So I called them back and realized it was for real. And I thought, well, okay, I'll do it. I didn't know Netflix was big. I had no idea, because I don't have any of that. I'm too busy. I don't watch a lot of TV, And so I had no idea. And I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would have not won. because I had, and then I got back, but my family, we all got together, and my sister says, do you know 60,000 people? So 60 million people watch that show? And I went, get out of town, I had no idea. So I Googled it on my phone, because I couldn't, and I couldn't believe, I didn't know it was that big, because I didn't have it. I had to use my sister's code. I think that's illegal.
Nah,
Anyway,
that's fine.
Don't worry about that.
Everyone does it.
I mean, she came over, and put it in, because I don't know how to do that. The only thing I know to do is click, turn it on, change the channel, volume. That's it. No technical here, and to watch it, because like I said, I don't have it, and everybody thinks that's crazy, but I don't have time. I have a few things that I watch, and then otherwise I'm super busy cooking for Meals on Wheels, which I know y'all had said y'all had in your country. And, I cooked, like I said, almost 53,000 meals alone myself.
That's just incredible.
So that's a lot of meals. In between that, and I don't know any of y'all have ever seen where I live, I mean, I've got a huge garden and property to take care of. I do a lot. I've learned everything on Instagram. If you see my posts, just by pushing buttons, okay? Because I don't, I answer all my own emails, all my own messages. I don't have people that do that. So anything that I've done, I've learned. I can text like a teenager now with my thumb. My mom's like, hey, you're good, And my sister's several years younger than me, and she's, very computer, literate. So she thinks I'm a good texter too. So I've got that down so pretty well. I know y'all hadn't hardly even talked. That's Southern.
No,
we love it. We prefer it that way.
Yeah.
We're doing something wrong if we're the people that are talking the most.
Okay. No, or I am. I don't know. But that kind of is in a nutshell. And then now y'all know I'm going to be on another show on a different network. So this will be my 5th network.
Getting around them, right?
Yeah. And you know what? You would think I'd have a lot more followers. Right?
Social media is a strange place. It's a strange thing.
Because the runner up on the show has like 100,000 followers. And God love him, but I mean, I haven't talked to him since the show, but I don't know.
I think social media is one of those strange things that Owen and I have grappled with a lot, because we have our own accounts as well as the podcast account that we run.
Are y'all following me?
Yeah,
of
course we are.
So we're following you on. I think so.
Yeah, I think you are.
If I'm not following y'all, send me a message so I can, because I get a lot of messages and I answer all my own. But if it's just a like or something, I may not know, but I answer all my own stuff, because I think if somebody is nice enough or not nice to write me and ask me a question or insult me or whatever, if they took the time to do that, I think I should take the equal time. Recently my sister helped me set when there's certain words that I don't get it, some insulting words, because I did get, I get that, whatever. People get mad about stuff. But I get literally hundreds a week.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, it just shows
98% of them are nice though.
Yeah, people get horrible on social media and the internet as well, because they're behind a screen or a keyboard and they don't realize.
Right, they know I can't go over there and whoop them.
Yeah, exactly.
On the technology side, how have you felt about that sort of technology moving across into barbecue? Because obviously you get more of the pellet grills and things now that are a lot different, and you get lots of different things. Do you use many of those different technical aspects? And are you using more of that stuff?
do have what we call, I guess, a DigiQ or a Guru. It's like a fan system. Because a couple of the smokers I have, own like a gravity fed. They will not run a cabinet style without one. I mean, that I can do that. That's not too technical, is it? I don't feel it's technical, but like I'm an ambassador with Big Green Egg.
Yes.
So Big Green Egg is, and I love you. Really, I have actually gotten rid. I used to have 15 different smokers and grills, and I slowly but surely got rid of them. Not only because I can do everything on my egg. You can bake, you can smoke, you can grill, so I kind of narrowed them down. I do have a pellet smoker that's kind of cool. When I just don't have time or I need to go somewhere, I can, put something low and slow. It's like a combo smoker. It's wood. And then once that wood burns out and you get that flavor, it switches over to pellet.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I do like that as an option, because I am so busy. If I have my option, I'm going to hang out while I'm at the pool, and I'm going to take the time and add wood and do all that, because that's part of the enjoyment of cooking for me. And then I also have the big gravity fed, and everybody's got like a kettle style grill, but I just don't use it. I really don't, which probably sounds bad, but I don't.
No, not at all. I mean,
If
Owen
I'm
and
cooking
I.
a contest, though, I use my gravity fed because I have to cook so much. And I'm pushing 60 right now, so I like to get a couple hours sleep. So
Yeah,
you
don't
can
blame me.
put the fan on, let it run, and set my alarm, wake myself up, dad charcoal, whatever, at like 2:30, and then I'm good till 6. So I like that. I like that method. And but I started using Smoky Mountains. Y'all have those Weber, like a bullet
Yeah,
style?
I've got a Smoky
I
Mountain
mean, and they cook
22 inch.
great. I actually ended up selling those to some other people that I know, so I still keep track of all my old smokers. Isn't that funny? And like,
how intimidating though, if Tina's going to pop
know.
over and check how you're doing with her smoker. Right, cook for me.
Yeah.
Have you been using it? What does this feel like?
Yeah. Or can I come over and use my old smoker? But I'm down to 2 eggs. I have a hog pit that I built out of block. And then I have my gravity fed, and I have I don't know if I can show it to you, but in my yard, I also have a big fire pit by my pool.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
That, I'll grill stuff on, just, hanging out, tenderloins or steaks or pork chops, things like that. So sometimes I'll do that. That's more for show, though.
You mentioned that you've brick built a pit. So you had to do that on the Netflix show.
Yes, and I'm sorry that I listened to Ashley. But where he's from, they do a lot of hogs,
Yeah.
But I had never built one before. I've cooked on them, but I'd never built one. So I probably, because it was really, really hot, like 90 something degrees every day, and at least that much humidity. So I don't think it had enough flow. That's why I was running so far behind. It's TV, so things aren't exactly as they seem. But I did make all those modifications that I felt it needed for flow here, because then it was filmed in Georgia. I live in Georgia, so the weather's very heavy and humid all the time. So I made some adaptations in that particular pit when I built it. And now I teach hog classes here at my house. I have people fly in from other countries actually to take that class.
Wow.
Come on over.
Yeah. Love to.
Yeah, my most recent one, I think I had 4 people from Canada fly in. And then, I have them from Florida, DC, lots of places. But
have you had anyone from the United? If you had anyone from England?
No, I wish they would though.
We'll have to be the first.
Well, it's not that long until we've got 40th coming up, so you watch the space.
Yeah, I have a class up on April. I think I'd have to look at what the weekend is. Let me look at my calendar. I think it's the 21st. It's a 2-day class. So let me look. Yeah, 21st, 22nd, or 22nd, 23rd.
So how often do you run those classes?
Well, I just usually run them in the winter and early spring because it's hot and I just don't like flies. The flies are everywhere. And that is part of cooking outside. But here where I live in the boonies, I live on property here. There's not houses nearby. And it's just not, I don't want to do it. Would you want to eat something that flies landed all over,
Yeah.
No. I mean, even filming the Netflix show, we were all sitting at that table eating roadkill, iguana.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that today.
Yeah. So the filming was very difficult because there were so many flies. I mean, so many. So we had to keep throwing, fabric over it in between takes and then pull it off real quick because you couldn't really have a fan because then everything would be blowing, And we're sitting at that table and we have these bugs called chiggers here.
Right.
Have you ever heard of that?
No.
They're the no-see-ums. Have you ever heard that term?
No.
Okay. That means you don't see them, but they'll bite you. No, really. There is even sprays you can buy called no-see-em spray. You
Oh,
know,
right.
we got things here that y'all don't got. But anyway, and those are not good things. But I mean, we are getting eat up because we all wore, shorts or whatever we had on, every day on the show. And I was so eaten up. I'm sure that the rest of the time they were filming, they had to edit my legs out because I had 50 bug bites on each one. It was terrible.
Like keeping concentration while all of those sorts of things are going on and you're being filmed and it's so hot. I know you said you have experience of cooking with lots of people and keeping you cool, but how do you concentrate when those sorts of things are going on?
I have no idea. I really don't, because it was like as soon as the camera would be turned off, they'd say cut and cover the food up. I'd be rubbing my legs, and all that, trying to keep off of it. So they did, bring some bug spray. And I mean, the Netflix people were super. I mean, really great. And they, they gave us sunscreen because, and they bring us, something so we didn't get dehydrated because one of our cast passed out.
Oh, wow.
Because heat, the tremendous heat just hit the dirt. Of course, that wasn't in the, but it was extremely hot and dehydrated. So they were giving us like these little hydration mixes for our water to drink. And, we got to eat. I mean, but it was hard. I think the elements were very difficult, but, they didn't concentrate on that. Because I think the way the show was filmed, it was a different time of year when we were filming it versus the way it was portrayed.
Mhm.
So people probably didn't realize it was that hot. But in Georgia, it is hot. I mean, I'm in the pool till October. So yeah. So
we normally get 1 week in July where it's above 15 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh no. So I take advantage of the heat in that way, but I digress. I just don't do hog classes during that time of the year for that reason. And especially if people are flying in, they're not accustomed to that, And, we have coyotes here and bobcats and armadillos and all that, and you're out there cooking at night. I think people would just freak out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I take a break. I do other classes during the summer months, like briskets or pork butts or a KCBS class or a FBA class, which is the Florida Barbecue Association, or an ABA, teaching that timeline and those flavor profiles, those, you don't have to be quite outside because I have a separate kitchen here. That's a classroom and all of that here.
Oh, right,
so we don't have to mess my house up. We go out there.
So obviously you were talking about the heat of the show and the kind of some of the bits in
it was
between.
105 one day.
Wow.
Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is for y'all.
No, Celsius, that'd be us boiling literally.
Yeah.
But
how long did the show, how long were you filming for in total?
The Netflix show?
Yeah.
I think it was ended up, I think on the 22nd day they brought me home.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, they drove because it was in Georgia, but a couple hours away. So they picked me up and then brought me back. So 22 days. Actual filming, I think was 21. And then they brought me home the day after.
Well, I suppose obviously because you went through it, there was a number of heats that you went through, and obviously someone was eliminated each time. But those challenges that you were doing were, well, that last one was what, 14, 15 hours, I think you had?
Oh, it was very long. It was weird. We were in that big barn. It was beautiful in there, and that, I remember there was like a window with a fan up at the very top, like a big, huge. I'm sure it was bigger than it appeared because that barn was 3 stories. So I remember I've got my head to the grindstone. I'm working. And I remember looking up, and the sun beam started coming through that fan. I had no idea it was already the next day. No idea.
Whoa.
And what? I did cobbler, peach cobbler, which is a common dessert here, which is, I don't know how to describe it. If you come here, I'll make you one. But I think on my website there's a recipe on there. So for peach cobbler, but I had no idea the time had passed, and the cobbler was the dessert, the last thing that I was cooking because the hog was already resting. Well, this did not happen. I think they made things kind of happen. So I'm mixing up the batter, and I go to put it in the oven, and the oven was off.
Oh
no.
And every day that we filmed, every session, we'd start back. The ovens were always preheated to a certain temperature. I don't know
sabotage.
Don't know who did it, but it was off. And I'm lucky it still turned out. I'm not a baker anyway. I'm not real good at baking. I have like 5 desserts I know how to make, and that's about it. And one of them is a variation on cobbler. 3 of them are. So that's not my thing, baking. I'm more of meats, entrees, sauces. That's kind of my thing when I went to culinary school. That's what I concentrated on. Yeah. But that a lot of people didn't see. There was a lot of behind the scenes like that, like in the refrigerator. Every day, what was in our refrigerators that we shared with who was next to us. So it'd be different. So you couldn't think on your head and go, okay, I know I got milk and I got blah, blah, you have no idea. And then you go and it's like, it's not in there, so you'd have to change. And I think that's good. Now the pantry items stayed similar. That, they'd add or subtract some things, but the staples were there. So like when Grubbs was next to me, the real hillbilly, I know what you think. I sound like a hick. Okay. He really is. So I even had a hard time understand him. But like when he went back in the pantry and grabbed the wrong chocolate when he made the dessert.
Yep.
Now I have my speculation on that. I think it got switched.
Oh.
I think, maybe the jars got switched or something. I can't say, you know what I mean? But I just can't imagine him because he's a good cook. And I think they were a little hard on him too, but he's a good cook. I've known him since the show I told you I did in 2014. He and I met because he was my alternate.
Right.
So if you don't on TV, what they do is they have some backup in case people aren't good on the camera, they freak out, they get hurt, whatever reason. And he was my alternate, and he and I met back then, and I didn't freak out on that show. So, they just had him hanging around just in case. But I met him then, and he and I had remained friends since, and he and I still talk pretty often. He's probably the one I talk to the most out of the whole group. But maybe I'm, like I said, I'm speculating, but I just think it's odd. And I didn't think that until after I saw the show, and I thought, well, my stove was turned off, so could have been, who knows?
And have you sat and watched all the episodes back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it like, let's say 1.5 times. The first time I was in Florida and a hurricane hit, so we had to evacuate.
Right.
So we lost power and everything. We thought, we'll go out of town and watch it when it aired on May 18th. So I didn't really get to see, but a little of it.
Yeah.
So then when I came back home, used my sister's code and watched it through, and I was like, things are different than they appear, I know you're going to ask me a question about the clothes, right?
Well, that you wore the same clothes every episode.
Yes. That is the biggest question. Not how I cooked something, but we had fresh clothes. I think they did it probably for editing reasons. They may not have, they were going to film another season. So maybe they were treating it like a pilot show or something. But we had clean clothes. Like if we needed them more than once a day, we would have clean clothes. But it was kind of weird. When I did the Food Network show, we had to have changes of clothes, for each different episode. But that one, nope, same thing. And they had me bring suitcases of clothes and shoes to the Netflix show. And then I get there and that's the outfit they give us. I'm like, I brought all this crap. And I picked out some cute stuff. And then they put me in a red raggy t-shirt and khaki shorts.
But you kept the pearls. That's the main thing, right?
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
Always. Well,
I'm not a fashion queen, so this goes with everything. It goes with everything from jeans to fancy dress to pajamas. It goes with everything.
You mentioned culinary school and all of these other experiences you've had. Is that what made you take the step towards doing your own products now as well?
I think what made me do actually Netflix, because I used my European blend. I know y'all are European, so y'all don't give me a hard time. But they called it herbs de Provence.
Yeah.
And there may be some crossover in the blend because they could, we mixed our own rubs, our own barbecue sauces, everything up on the show. So we put it in herbs de Provence so I could use it.
Right.
But I hadn't marketed it yet. It's something I had made for years. I had a recipe that I put together and I'd keep it in the cabinet. And of course, now it's a bigger scale. But it's the same exact blend that I used on the show and something I had used since I lived in Europe. And when I remember when I was going to school, it's different. Still like that, I think, over there. Everybody goes to the store more often, whereas Americans, we go and we stock up on a bunch of processed crap, but in our cabinet. But I remember going to this store that you go buy all your herbs and spices at, dried, fresh, and I remember just going into that store thinking, oh my God, how good it smelled, So when I started, experimenting with making my own flavors, when I opened a bottle, and I just opened a new one today because I made clam chowder, I smelled it, and it reminds me of that day I walked into that store. That's the only way I know. It's a memory for me every time I use it. I actually still just take the bottle and smell it because it reminds me of some really positive vibes when I decided, hey, I want to be a chef. So every time I open a bottle, which I don't think a lot of people can say that about their product because they do what we call white labeling, where they just put their name on something and sell it. This is 100%. It's even in my phone where I sent the guy in an email, here is my recipe, to blend it for me because of legal reasons. I can't really make it in my home. And there'd be no way I could produce that many because I ship, as I told you, internationally, not just the US. We ship everywhere. But I also order it from that blender too, just like if you ordered it. I randomly want to make sure it's exact, And then I have another bottler that does my hot sauce because it's a one type pepper. It's not a blend. It's one type of pepper that I wanted, which is unusual because it's cheaper to do a blend. It's cheaper to use just white distilled vinegar, but I don't. I use rice vinegar. I just like the smoothness of it, the acid level, and I use a certain type of smoked paprika in it. I wanted it specific. Same thing. I have the exact recipe I sent him. I just didn't let him produce something and put my name on it. And then my other product is a brine. I mistakenly called it bird brine. I should have not called it because people think you can only use it on poultry. But at the time I came out with it, it was during, when most people here in the States are buying, to cook turkeys for our Thanksgiving and things like that. So I probably should have not called it that, it's crazy, but I use it dry, to do a dry brine on a lot of different meats. I use it on grilling steaks, a lot of different stuff. So, oh, well, if your people want to look it up, trust me. And if you write me, I will tell you how to use it.
I think that's important though, isn't it? That authenticity of, exactly
so
every single ingredient. every single measurement.
Every one of the exact amounts.
Mhm.
Now, of course, mine was like a tablespoon of this, because I didn't make huge quantities of it. I'd make hot sauce and put it in, pint jars or something.
Mhm.
But so that I had a bigger amount. But sometimes when you multiply ingredients or you have to find a certain ingredient, especially during COVID production,
Mhm.
it was very, very hard. Especially one of my ingredients in my European blend seasoning was very difficult to find, and I got really worried. But thank goodness we were able to purchase enough of it to make the blend. And it's actually the thing that's the very least in it, but it's key.
Yeah.
Key about what you need in it. If we
Mhm.
didn't have that particular season, then it would not be the flavor that it is.
Mhm.
So, but we found it. We got plenty in stock. Matter of fact, I'm doing another new round. I think eventually I might change my label, but because I'm under Pearly Girl is like kind of my hashtag.
Mhm.
So I may reevaluate and change the label instead of my face on it going, I'm not that pretty.
If you've been looking or thinking about an outdoor kitchen, then look no further than AOS Outdoor Kitchens.
They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.
Their extensive showroom is based just outside Bournemouth on the Dorset-Hampshire border, and as well as numerous in-store displays, also features a live outdoor kitchen where they cook every week on Kamado grills, pizza ovens, and all filmed and shown on YouTube.
They offer a wealth of knowledge on how to transform your patio into the most incredible outdoor dining area with styles and options to suit every budget, and you can guarantee they will be able to create something perfectly suited to you and your home.
They stock and supply everything that you're going to need for outdoor cooking, including barbecues, Kamado ovens, pizza ovens, outdoor fridges, and every accessory that you would need to become the ultimate outdoor chef.
So if you want to make yourself the envy of your friends and neighbours, get in touch with them today to arrange a consultation and take the first step in transforming your back garden into the most incredible entertainment space.
Visit aoskitchens.co.uk. Let's say, I don't know, this afternoon, once you've finished, you're going to cook for yourself and your husband. What would be the thing what's your go-to kind of cook on the barbecue?
Oh, if it was barbecue? Oh. Well, tomorrow I know I'm making these really thick pork chops.
Nice.
Ooh.
And then tonight I hadn't even, that's sad. I got some shrimp that I want to use, but I haven't got as far as what I want to make with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to use shrimp with some hot honey. I love spicy food and my hot sauce, and do like a quick saute of it. I don't even know if I'm grilling today. It's sunny out. I should. It rained the last several days. But
you can't always be outside though, can you?
Well, yeah. I'll show you outside here. See, there's my.
Oh, wow.
That's my pool. And then over those buildings over there, that's my she shed where a couple of my grills are, my big green egg.
See, our country is so small and we're so crammed together. Your swimming pool's like the size of one of our towns.
That's funny. Because, I got a pond and a barn down there. So. Surprised there's no deer out here when I come. Yeah, we got a lot of varmints. So I'm pretty lucky at the space I have here. So, they'll be dragging me out of this house in a body bag when I die. So I'm never. That is
as long as you keep the temperature low and slow. Put some of my European blend on.
Yeah, and top me off with some hot sauce. Yeah.
That's it.
I'm hoping, I'll come out probably with some more products later on. I do have, hats and shirts and all that on my website. But I'm hoping to come up, which is surprisingly that I don't have a barbecue sauce out yet, and I don't have a barbecue seasoning. Isn't that crazy? That I came out with other stuff, even though I'm known for barbecue.
Keep people on their toes. Why not?
Yeah, keep them guessing. That's what I'm
We'd love
But
to know.
and I have some that I make, but it's quite expensive every time here to get it approved. You got to get the government and the RDA, and that's the recommended daily allowance, nutrition facts. It's like takes a lot of time and money to do that, and then you have to be able to find whoever's blending it for you has to be licensed, and that they will use the ingredients you want. A lot of them will just get this brand or that brand. I'm pretty specific, about that. That's why I have 3 products and 3 different blenders. It'd be a lot easier if it was through one, but I needed to make sure it was specific,
Yeah.
So I have my brine comes out of Maine, which is what the way northern point here on the East Coast. And then my hot sauce is made in the Carolinas. And then I have a blender in Texas that blends my seasoning.
Wow.
I know.
Jet setting.
No, I don't have to go there, but but it was hard to find someone. Some people specialize in more of like liquid production type products like the hot sauce. And then up in Maine, the availability of some of the things that are in my brine is easier to find. And that was during COVID that I was developing that. So with some of those products, if they grow or come from that area, it made it easier to produce, and more reasonable as far as, pricing. And then with the original European blend seasoning, I went with a guy that I actually like his seasoning. And he makes a barbecue seasoning that I actually really liked. And I said, well, who do you use? So I partnered with him to use his people to blend it. And we went back and forth, to get it exactly like I wanted it to taste. So, makes it hard to manage, the books by, but at least I know it's a good product.
Yeah, that's the main
And
thing.
I don't know if y'all know, the profits to all my stuff goes to Meals on Wheels, not to me.
Oh, wow.
I know, I didn't know that.
I donated once I came within in positive money, because you got to pay back, you got to buy the bottles, you got all that. But the profits go to Meals on Wheels.
Another reason to buy it. Another reason to buy it.
I mean, just for some people, yes, the elder care is really important to me. Learned that from my dad. He's since passed. He had to have 24-hour care for 17 years of his life. And I see how important that group of people, how often are ignored here. I don't know about there. And the way our healthcare system and just even a lot about American lifestyle. It seems that other cultures seem to honor their elders more than a lot of Americans. And I'll probably take some flack for that. And y'all, I'm sorry. It's just my experience, in living it with my dad needing care for 17 years of his life, from the time he was 57. So he had to have everything done for him. So I think that's what, it's a personal experience that made me see the need there. We have a lot of children's charities, and I'm not saying people should not do that, but it's just something close to my heart personally.
Yeah, and with the experience, it's easy for people to comment until they've had to go through something, and then you realize what actually matters. And having not many people are producing things that the profits are then going to what they care about. So that's amazing.
A lot of times it's a tax write-off or something like that. I was already cooking for Meals on Wheels when I actually filmed the show before I came out with any of the products. I grew up with my mom delivering for them when I was a child. I donated to them because, when you cook and compete in barbecue, you have a lot of leftover or a lot of product you can't use. With catering, I'd have a lot of product that didn't sell or the client didn't need. So I had a lot of experience with that elder care need for food. So, that is why I went in that direction. I do get people sometimes write me and say, I should give to the children and all that. And I have a couple charities I do. I just don't advertise that. I cook every week for Meals on Wheels, so I have a strong connection there. So if any of your listeners are offended, I'm sorry.
They won't be.
I'm
and if
sure
they
they
are,
won't.
they can write to us and we'll tell them where to go, frankly.
Okay, good. Tell them. Because my mama wouldn't be happy if I said what I'd like to say sometimes.
So I'm going to completely change the subject to
Okay.
one of the things that we hold very dear on this podcast is barbecue fails, the things that haven't gone so well. I'm sure we've all experienced them. We would love to hear some stories of, I don't know, maybe you've, whatever it might be, but what has been some of your fails, Tina?
Well, the biggest one had to do with technology. Funny to say. I was in a contest that was it still is one of the biggest paying contests in the Southeast. So I'm there and, I have great recipes. I had been winning some categories and I was using the exact same recipes. Same one I'd won at World Food with. So everything was going good. And I was using a different brand of a stoker for my fire, a different brand of fan. And the owner of the company was there. Great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he came over to update it for me, gets automatic updates and all that. So he was doing a favor, right?
Yeah.
Well, it did not work out as expected. And everything was totally off on temperature. Now in competition, things are like 5-minute intervals. I'm doing something. I have a timeline, which I teach in my class. It threw everything off. And I got my what handed to me at that contest. And I was using recipes that were winning, the week prior. And then the week after I won, with these recipes. And that was all because of electronic failure, technicality, I guess you could say. So that was my biggest one because it cost me a lot because I was on a big winning streak then. So not only the money, but also, hang my head, so because I was doing so well at that time. So that was the biggest, that kind of failure. And then my husband, I wish he was here. We live not on the coast, so our fish quality is not always, what you want to get. So I decided I was going to make this grilled fish dish with codfish, which I know y'all are familiar with. So I was gonna grill it up and make this fresh harissa sauce and couscous.
Oh,
okay,
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, all on the grill. Okay, y'all, it was awful. I used somebody else's recipe, and he choked it down, and finally, he still to this day jokes me about that grilled fish recipe. The fish stuck. I mean, I'm like, why? It wasn't good. It had the oil gland through it. So that was a huge failure that my family still jokes me about today, about my fish filter, and I have a big, seafood company that, I work with. So I'm a great fish cook, but not on that one. It was terrible, 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 terrible. And I'm trying, and, another one that was bad. Evidently, the wood that I cooked with had got wet.
Yeah.
So I lit it, didn't think about it, went out, and I told my husband, I don't know what I was doing. I said, just go set it on the smoker. Just sit it on there, Well, all of a sudden, I see billowing like black smoke coming out of my smoker. I'm like, oh my God, it's caught fire. I go running out there because you can see I just showed y'all from my window. All my grills are, I used to have it. I don't have this grill anymore, by the way. It is totally smoking like crazy out there. Well, I went out there and evidently the wood was very wet. It had been left open and it got wet. So that's another one. Oh, I have another one. Okay. I know. It's like I have to think, but I had a pellet smoker. And you know how when they sometimes will just kind of blow up, you have a smoke out on it. Okay. I'm literally standing here in the bedroom talking on the phone to somebody. I look outside and it is, I think the building out there, my she shed out there, is on fire. Bobby, my husband and I, we run out there, think, grab the hose, think we're going to put it out. And all of a sudden the lid to the smoker goes boom, like this, like blows up. Like, so that was the end of that smoker and of course, everything that was in it. So I don't to this day know what happened, but it got tossed. So is those some good enough fails, or you want some more?
They're good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more. So, but but I don't use that particular brand of pellet smoker anymore. And I didn't badmouth anybody, but it, and I understand that evidently happens on some,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went out there to see what my neighbors that we don't live close to each other even called what's going on over there,
Wow.
and they're used to me cooking. But when the lid did that, I could see the flames inside, so when I went to try to open, I couldn't. So I just reached for the plug and pulled it out, because and it builded like that. Then finally, when it quit about 4 hours later, I opened it up and I had some pork butts in there, and they were like a round, crispy, I mean, crunch, it's like, oh, well, so we didn't have pork butts for dinner. So that's my three major ones. I guarantee if my husband were here, he could tell him about that terrible fish recipe. When people say, oh, it's really good, it's good, la, la, la. No. I still have it in my recipe box. I have a box, a physical box, not online. And I still have it, but I got a big X through it.
I was going to say, have you not tried to do it again?
No. After you eat fish that has that gland through it, it kind of turns you off for a while.
Yeah.
I don't like.
I guess some people like that oil. No, don't like.
It's quite a weird particular thing, fish, isn't it? You have one bad one, and that'll set you off for ages.
Yeah, it takes a while. It's like having like that one bad tequila drink, and you're off of tequila for a while.
we all know what that feels like.
Shot.
After the 24 other ones, yeah.
I'm not a bit. I like margaritas, but I can't do that with the salt and the lime. Learn my lesson. I'll stick to bourbon. That's what we like here in the South.
Yeah, I do like a good whiskey, bourbon. What sort of bourbon do you drink in then when you're barbecuing?
Usually Jack Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
But I have some Woodford in there. And I like the honey bourbon.
Yeah. I
do love the honey bourbon. I cook with it a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably cook with more bourbon than I actually drink, to be honest. Because I'm a lightweight drinker. I'd rather have one of something I really love, like a better quality margarita or a better quality wine, than some people would rather have a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a cheap date. It's more for y'all if y'all come over and visit.
You must be super hard to impress though when it comes to cooking. It must be quite intimidating to cook for you with such expertise.
Yeah, nobody cooks for me. Maybe that is why.
Wow.
My mom does.
Yeah.
No, people don't, and I wish they would, because I know what, if somebody made me boxed macaroni and cheese at their house, it's more, to me, when I feed people, it's like I'm giving of me. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, the necessity to eat. If I'm cooking for you, I want to please you. I want it to be. So if someone does it for me, it's just the fact that they did it.
Yeah.
I don't think of it as that, but I guess that maybe that's a reason that nobody cooks for me.
Put an advert out. If you cook for me, I will not judge.
But that's probably why. And that's kind of disappointing. If anybody that's in the US listen to this when this airs, y'all, I want y'all to cook for me. It can be rice-a-roni. Do y'all know what that is?
No, rice-a-roni.
Never heard of it.
It's like a pre-mixed rice dish.
Right.
You just
Is
mix
it
all
good?
together. When I was a kid, I liked it. If somebody made it for me, they darn it, I won't tell them I didn't like it. No, I got nicer manners than that.
So apart from the exclusive TV show that you're about to sign the contract for, what else have you got planned? What else have you got in the pipeline for 2023?
Oh gosh, I've got some schools coming out. I've partnered with Big Green Egg to do a monthly on live school.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Where I'll cook something on the egg, and then people can rewatch it, of course. So that'll be loaded onto my webpage, so anybody can do that, you know. And then the first one, nobody knows this, which is probably going to be after this airs. I know before it airs. It's going to be on the 12th of March. I'm going to be doing corned beef on the egg, a whole meal. Now, all these are geared toward American holidays, so I apologize for that. But it's still cooking.
Yeah.
Still cooking.
Yeah.
And then, you know, April, I'll have something else. May, June, I know that's like Father's Day. So I'll be doing something that's Father's Day-y, you know, because that's a holiday here. But that doesn't mean just because it's our holiday, y'all don't cook it.
No.
Right? So that's actually brand new and
June,
hasn't even been announced. Y'all are getting everything. That won't be probably for another couple of weeks, just like the TV show, until they get this contract back and some headshots, which probably be a week or 10 days after they get this back. You know, that won't be announced. And then what else I got right now, and it'll probably be finished by the time y'all get this, but I've partnered with a company called Savannah Bee Company, which is in Georgia, but it's a company that raises honey. You know, sustainable farms, all the, you know, the old way, but they're a large company. And Big Green Egg and a company out of Maine that gets some of his seafood from Europe, gets it flown over. It's called Get Maine Lobster. I've got like a box that you can order, and it's a recipe called Nashville Hot Lobster, and, that you can make yourself at home, but you order the box and it's everything you need to make it in the box.
You just announced it on TikTok, didn't you?
I think just about, yeah, I did. But I don't think that will be available where y'all live. I don't think so. I think that's just continental, yes, because of shipping. You know, it's a lobster is not great, you know, a few days later. But so I'm doing a lot of things like that. And then I've got, let's see, I've got a whole calendar here. I've got a big egg fest. I'll be going to San Antonio in, is that March? Yep, mid-March. I'm going to San Antonio for a big egg show there. And there's actually people from UK I know coming to that.
Yeah.
So yeah. The big egg fest that, you know, for the Ace Hardware or distributors of Big Green Egg, the biggest distributors will be there. So I'm sure, I mean, I could find out who it was if you want me to, who's coming, but I got that going on. And then I leave on the 19th to go film the show in March.
Wicked.
You know what's really cool about the show? I think it's going to air here in the US in June, but the final is live.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm like, oh, Lord. You know?
Have you done any live TV before?
I'd like a few little interview things or something like that, but never like, no. So that's kind of crazy.
Just remember, if the bug bites, you rub your legs when the camera's not looking at you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because I think if I make it, you know, my person makes it through. We filmed that in like the end of May. Wow. I don't know, and got to have rain, delay weather, and all that. So that when they told me that, I was like, interesting. Woo, okay.
Actually, just a question in regards to that kind of mentoring. On the show, you obviously have Melissa Cookston, you know, very, very well known, even here. obviously they were judging you and your fellow contestants, but did they also, I suppose it didn't really come across in the show, but were there off air, was there a lot of mentoring from them, or is it just purely we're judging you, that's it?
That's it.
Right,
Purely
okay.
judge. Because I think in the show they showed me a couple times trying to ask questions, trying to, because why not, right?
Yeah.
All they can say is no. So I think when she was walking around, I think they put a couple times when I was asking her questions, and she's a very direct person, and she didn't give me any tips, that's for sure. I wish she had it, but because you always want to learn from a 7-time champion, right?
But she was probably thinking of competition season. She's like, I'm not giving her any tips whatsoever because she'll be coming for me.
Maybe so. No, she didn't give me any because I was trying to dig out of her anything, and they showed a snippet of it. That's about it. But I asked her a few times.
Why not?
Yeah. All she can say is, I ain't telling you.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to say, I think that maybe now we've talked about different kind of your products and different style of cooking. Is it time now for us to do barbecue bingo?
Barbecue Bingo is brought to you by Lumberjack Food Company, your ticket to Flavortown.
Anyone who's not listened to the show before, what we do is we have a wheel of ingredients that Owen will put up on his screen. We'll press a button, the wheel spin, and whatever it lands on, we'll ask you to think about what you might do with it, talk us through maybe some ideas, but then in your own time, if you get the chance, go off, cook it, tag us in, use the hashtag barbecue bingo, and show people what you can do when you're put on the spot.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can see my screen.
There it is.
It's not high tech in any way, shape, or form. And
it is for me.
So the last season of the podcast, what we were doing is we were actually getting our guests to leave an ingredient for the next guest. So some of these ingredients are actually our ex-guests from last season. So
okay.
There is so there is one on here called My Signature Dish. So if that lands on that, we'd like you to cook your signature dish. And what would that be?
I'll do it.
What would be your signature dish?
What would it be for you?
God, a lot of people would say it was pork, but you know what I would probably do? I'd probably do those beef ribs from the show.
Oh, I love beef ribs so much.
Yeah, that probably would be, because more people ask me about that, or whole hog. That's the two things I get the most questions about. So probably that.
So on this list then.
You want me to click it?
That's right. I'll click it. But just after the conversation that we've had, I'm sure you want it to go onto oily fish, don't you?
No.
Right. I'll give it a spin and let's see what we come up with.
Okay.
Here we go. Do you know what? That's the one thing I thought, if that comes up, that'll be interesting.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, there's someone in the UK who's an influencer who he's amazing, some of the things that he does on a barbecue. And
maple and pecan ice cream. I hope I can find that.
Well, he makes it. He makes it himself.
Oh my God.
You don't have to make it, obviously, but it's what you would possibly do with it.
Yes. Maple and pecan ice cream. Well, both of those items go with pork. Because I'm known for meat. I'm not going to do a dessert with it. I'm going to do an entree.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know why it couldn't be a maple pecan ice cream sauce on like some seared pork, like pork tenderloin or pork loin or pork chops.
Oh, I like where you're going with that.
That sounds beautiful.
Or if I made homemade ice cream, I could make it with buttermilk instead of regular sweet milk or whatever y'all call it there, and use it as a marinade.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And I would add bourbon to it.
Sounds great.
Maple, pecan, and bourbon go together like, nobody's business.
Sounds
So
good to
yeah,
me.
I'll cook something with it.
Awesome. Yeah, we can't wait to see that. If
You
yeah,
want me to make pictures or you want a video on it?
whatever you
do
have
you.
the time to do
Yeah.
would be amazing.
I'll do it. That's
Awesome.
interesting. I'm glad I didn't get oily fish though. I'd
we'd have
rather have the ice cream.
We'd have had to just cut that bit out and do it again.
No, no.
Well,
That'd be awesome.
fantastic. No, I said we really look forward to seeing what you can do.
And
Is
then
there
I
any-
want y'all to make it.
Oh, we'll have a go.
You want us to have a go as
I
well?
want
Yeah,
y'all
we'll
to
have a
make-
go.
Yeah, do it.
So what have you?
It might be an interesting curry. You might could use it as a curry.
That's literally what I was trying to think of. I
Yeah.
was thinking, could I use it at all? Because I love making curries, and
Me
I was
too.
thinking, could you use it instead of like a coconut milk type thing? And how would
I
that
think you
feel?
could.
Mm,
Yeah. But I mean, I'm known for grilling and barbecue. So whatever I do, I'm going to do it on the grill.
nice.
Unless y'all don't want me to, then I'll.
No, you do it on the grill. We want to see it
Okay.
on the grill.
Amazing.
I will.
Well,
I'll do it.
whatever you do, obviously let us know. We'll have a go as well.
Yeah.
We'll try and replicate what you've done.
Okay. Have y'all ever heard of Alabama white sauce?
I've heard of it, but I don't know
I've never
what
had
it is or what goes in it.
Well, I don't like mayonnaise, but it's mayonnaise based.
Hmm.
But I might could, do something with the ice cream and add some bourbon and like come up with my own version of it. Because I think like smoked paprika with that ice cream
Yeah.
would be a good hint. Or my hot sauce has smoked paprika.
Yeah,
Those wheels are
ideas.
moving.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna get a headache. They're working so hard.
So, is there anything that we haven't kind of brought up? Is there anything else that you'd love to kind of chat about? Doesn't even have to
I
be
know.
barbecue,
Well, God,
really.
I've been running my mouth for an hour now. No, there's got to be something y'all want to ask me, like throw me on the spot, right?
Well, if you're on the spot, and this is more possibly for kind of the British people from the UK audience, we are behind you guys when it comes to barbecue. We like to think we're catching up, but whenever we just think of barbecue, we think of American. Whereas if you look into it, all of the different states have different flavor profiles, different ideas of how it should be done. Could you talk us through some of those variations and how they look, what they taste like, and if that affects what you're doing in competition as well?
Yeah. Well, competition is pretty much, unfortunately, almost the same. Because if you go and use those regional recipes in a sanctioned event, at a Kansas City style KCBS, they're expecting the Kansas City style, which is a tomato base with some sweetness, But at home, I'm a super slow cook. I'm known for like really low. It's like 235. I don't know what that is Celsius, but it's very, very low.
100,
And
I think.
Yes.
I like really, really low, slow. I like it more simply prepared, like just salt and let the smoke and the wood give the flavor. Carolinas, there's a couple school of thoughts in Carolina. One of them is like a mustard based sauce and the other's a vinegar based sauce, and they do mopping with vinegar. So it has quite a bit of a tang note on that one. Georgia, some people will use some vinegar injection. They enhance the meat with vinegar and, or the pig, if you cook a whole hog with that. Carolinas are mostly known, North Carolina, for their hogs, their whole hogs. That's like a big to do there. I'd say California, West Coast is very much more of a grilled type flavor, not necessarily low and slow. They'll do more of a hot and fast. They do a lot of, unique meats, and they even do vegetables there. Here, no, we're eating meat, and it's usually pork. The South is known for more pork. Texas, Arkansas, like the middle South of the U.S., beef is king, like beef ribs, beef brisket, beef sausage. Whereas here, where I'm from, it's pork. Pork is, when you invite somebody over for barbecue, It's going to be pork ribs. It's going to be pork. It's going to be whole hog. It's going to be pork. Whereas in Texas, is typically going to be beef. It's a little bit of a different type of meat, and that that goes way back to when the U.S. like kind of began. What we grew in this area. Pork was easier to grow. Than beef. Has to be a much longer period of time. And then up north, like Michigan and all, I think people do more grilling than low and slow cooking. I know I'm gonna get some flack from that, but from people, I'm going by my experience and people on that. When you have a colder climate, you're not going to get as many low, slow cooks. Things are spreading now. Just like over there. Like I know Andy. Do you say his name Annette or Arnett?
Yeah, Arnett.
Yeah. He I've met him a couple times, when he's came to the US, but he does like grilling on hay, and grapevine and other, where you're from, you cook on what is available. Here in the South, I traditionally cook. I love pecan wood. Do y'all have that there?
Not really. It's not easy for us to get hold of, really.
Yeah, right. And we use hickory wood. What do y'all cook on?
A lot of oak, cherry.
A lot of oak. Yeah, because it's plentiful there, right? Myron Mixon is known for peach wood, but where he lives, there's peach orchards. Georgia peaches, they're famous for their peaches and pecans. So a lot of it goes back to what's available where they are, and that's what I think is great about barbecue. It's regional for a reason, It doesn't make yours right and mine wrong, or Texas right or wrong. It's what you have access to. I mean, barbecue low and slow came from that in the history of what you had in the area. Like in Texas, they do cook on post oak traditionally, and most people think they cook on a lot of mesquite. Everybody in Texas does not cook on mesquite. I don't really care for the flavor of mesquite, but it has a distinct flavor. I have friends in California. They cook on almond wood. Lots of almonds come from California. Matter of fact, the predominant, that we get here comes from California. So they cook on a lot of unique woods and things that come from that area. So I think that's a good thing, that we can all keep our flavor profiles a little bit regional, because you can't get it. So when you come here and eat with me, you're like, wow, how different it is. And if I came there, it's different. So I remember in Europe, long time when I was in culinary school, we're talking about like 1981 to 82, something I had never seen here in the US. And now we see it all the time. It could have been just lack of experience, because, I didn't have that. I had a dad that burnt on gas grills, but it hung from a swing, a chain. And the first time I saw it was actually in Germany, where they put pork on it with onions, and the guy stand around and swing it over the fire.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, I love that. I need to get invited to that, because I've always been kind of what I call a carnivorous varmint. I like, I'm a meat eater, which a lot of women don't eat the quantities of meat that I do. Maybe that's why I'm chubby. But I remember seeing that. And now, I want one of those. So if any sponsors are listening.
But Owen's been talking about fire cages for years.
Do what?
Owen's been talking about fire cages for years and hanging stuff on. So he's also chasing one too.
Yeah, I just think, I guess I could, all you need is chains and an old grate, and I could put it even in my hog pit. But I just remember that memory of seeing that for the first time, thinking, oh my God, that is so cool. It turns out a lot of people here do it. You see it a lot in like California, because it's kind of like Santa Maria grills, that raise and cook straight over fire. But I had never seen that until then. I'd just seen like cinder block pits and Weber grill. I think I got a Weber grill when I was 10 as a gift, because I was in a scout troop. I had Girl Scouts at the time. I think they're in the US. They're all together now, whatever. But I remember that's what I got it for, because I wanted to be like the boys and cook outside. You know, Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts back then was very separated when I was 10. You know, the girls did these things and the boys did these things. And I thought, I want to do that.
Mm.
So I got my cooking badge that we used to get from cooking on a grill, not, you know, baking cake in my kitchen, which was kind of a big deal back then, because, you know, girls were supposed to cook in the house and, you know, bake cookies and stuff. So I actually got my cooking badge from cooking on a grill. I wish I could find that picture. I know there's a picture of me actually doing it. So, oh well, memories. My mom probably has it stored somewhere.
Brilliant. Well, I don't know if I have any other questions, actually.
I've covered it. I've probably talked you during ear off.
Hey, well, we love it, and it's been lovely speaking to you. The passion is obvious. You know, sometimes we speak to people and not on the podcast, because we're very specific over who we ask on the podcast. It's people that we're interested in talking to, but out and about, and people talk about food, but they don't really care. Do you know what I mean? Or it feels more
it's
of a
just
front.
a job.
Yeah, it's just whereas it's a passion. So that's great.
No, with me, it drives everything that I do, from my charity work to just, it's the only thing I know how to do. And and like I said, think about it. Who can say anything negative about it, right? Food makes everybody happy. Every holiday, you know, everything is geared around that. You know, even some countries, the way, you know, I think the way they speak to each other, I think in some Asian countries, when they say it, you know, I can't speak that language, but it's "have you eaten yet?" is actually the translation. You know, it's so much positivity around it to me, because it's giving of really the only thing I know. You know, other than being a good dog mom.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us as well. It's been fantastic
so sweet of
speaking
y'all
to
to
you.
ask me. I'm very flattered.
And we won't be strangers either. We'll stay in contact. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
See you
All right,
again.
y'all.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you, Tina. And that's another episode of the Meet and Greet BBQ podcast. It was fantastic speaking to her. The passion that she has for cooking is second to none. You can really see it. And hopefully we might even see her in the UK sometime soon. Keep an eye out for that. We'd love to hear from you, whether it be people you'd like us to interview, any questions you have for us, or any tips, please do get in contact. You can find us on social media if you search for Meet and Greet BBQ podcast, and you can direct message us that way, or give us a Google, go onto our website, and you can contact us through there, or drop us an email. All the contact details are on our website. And while you're there, you can also check out our store. We have a load of merchandise. If you'd like anything with a branded logo, have a look on there. And also we have bits and pieces. We do a Firma-Pen, which affiliate as well. So go through there. If there's anything you want, go and grab it. And until next time, keep on grilling. Today's episode of the Meet and Greet BBQ podcast is brought to you by AOS Outdoor Kitchens. They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.